All right, we are live. Hello, students. It's Mr. Spadoni here, and I have a special guest with us. This is the one and only Matt Oakes. I know him as Coach Oakes. Other kids I've been around know him as Professor Oakes for you Pokemon fans out there. But I figured I'd turn over to him. I'll tell you quickly. I know him. I've known you since, oh my gosh, 2011, I believe. When I first met you at Alfred University, you were my trainer for lacrosse. But you have obviously gone on to bigger and better things. So I'll pass it over to you and you can share with the students what you are currently doing and where you are.
Yeah, so currently I work for Team USA, and specifically I work for USA Luge. It's a sliding sport, and they lay on a sled feet first, and they go down, the icy chute at about 70 to 90 miles per hour. And currently I'm in China and Yanqing, and we're at the sliding center here at the Olympic Village. And yeah, kind of my path here has been to be an athletic trainer in college and high school and in private settings, and then made my way into high performance sports like the Olympic teams. And yeah, I've been working for USA Luge over the course of probably, I don't know, geez, 8 to 10 years. Yeah, and it's been a good ride, and yeah, we're here at the games, and that's where we're at.
So you've been saying you've been doing this for 8 to 10 years. How did you get into it? What turned your course from working with high school and college athletes to getting into the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone kind of in every profession, they dream of, or they think about, hey, what's the next level that I could go to, that I'm good enough for, and that I've been working towards. And so it was just kind of a progression, right? My education and my skills and my experience kind of kept growing, and then you meet people who are in different areas. Maybe they're in a profession that's a little higher than you, or a level that's higher than you, and you get connected, and then things start to happen, and then you end up with a job in the Olympics or professional sports, or like hockey. Like I have a former student who worked his way all the way up to the NHL, and you'll see him on the bench now with the LA Kings as their athletic trainer. So yeah, it just takes experience and time, and then dedication to get to where you think you might want to go in life.
Interesting, very interesting. So, what is your educational background? I know a couple classes had that question. What did you do school wise to get where you are today? You
Yeah,
didn't just
so
show up at the luge center, right, and say I want to work with luge athletes.
I definitely did, and and to be honest, when I got hired, I had zero clue what luge was, and so it was kind of interesting to get started. And so my educational background, though, is I went to a 4-year private institution, Alfred University. That's where Jake went, and I got a degree in sports medicine, specifically in athletic training. So I got a bachelor's in science in athletic training. That allowed me to sit for my national exam, which gave me my license to be an athletic trainer. And then in New York, I had to also apply for my licensure there. That allows me to just practice and do what I do on the sidelines, and in the athletic training room. For all of you athletes out there, youngsters growing up, you might someday run into someone like me who's going to tell you that, hey, you sprained your ankle, or you jammed your finger, or you hurt your shoulder. This is what you should do, and this is how you should do it so you can get back to playing. I also went to graduate school, and that's by choice that I went to graduate school back then. And I went for outdoor recreation education. So that's part of like physical education. And that helps me, explain better to people how to maybe use their body, and in different ways than you guys would normally think of. So you're talking like trail running, mountain biking, rock climbing, ice climbing, snowboarding, skiing, those different types of modalities that are just outside that you guys might do in the winter or the summer or the spring. So that's kind of my educational background. I can tell you that being an athletic trainer now, if you went to school, that things have changed. So you have to get your master's degree now if you want to become an athletic trainer. I didn't have to do that. I'm older, so when I went to school, it was just required that you got your bachelor's degree, but now it's become a master's degree profession. So that's my educational background.
So nowadays you have to continue learning and progressing further.
Yeah.
So another question some students had at Laurelton Party was, how many Olympics have you been to?
That's a good question. So this is my third Olympics. I went to Sochi in 2014, which is in Russia. I went to Pyeongchang, which is in Korea, and that was 2018. And then now I'm here in Beijing, and it's 2022.
Okay, so I have to ask, you've been to 3 Olympics. Which one has been your favorite so far?
You know, that's a good question. It's really tough. Each experience has its own, it has its own highs and lows, and they're in different places, right? So everything's a little bit different. I would say personally for me, the Olympic experience overall, being able to see as many events as I wanted and go to opening and closing ceremonies and stay the whole time, was probably Russia, going to Sochi. Not too often you get to go to the Olympics and do opening and closing ceremonies in a medical position like mine. And, I got to go to a hockey game, USA versus Russia, which was ultra cool. And I got to go and see skiing and snowboarding and all those different types of events. Personally, my own personal self, the best Olympics was probably Korea because I was born there. So that was really neat for me to go back and learn about my heritage, and then also walk in opening ceremonies at the Pyeongchang Games.
Very cool, very cool. I can't glaze over this question before we move on to current Olympic questions. A lot of classes wanted to know what inspired you to be working with athletes and get into your field that you're in.
What inspired me? Um, Probably a lot of my mentors probably inspired me, like people that were older than me and have had experiences that were bigger than mine at the time, and they were always kind of pushing me to try and test my limits and see where I could end up. And so a lot of you folks that are out there, you've got coaches and parents and friends and family who are going to kind of try to lift you up and inspire you to do things that are more than what you think you can do. That's kind of the same for me. You have people that my mentor worked the X Games, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. She used to work the Winter X Games and the Summer X Games, and I always thought that was super cool, and to get involved with those big kind of televised sports. And I've had other professors who work professional hockey and football and things like that. So it's they always try to push you to the next level, and that's an inspiration to try to like meet their expectations and then exceed your own expectations of yourself. So yeah, that was kind of my inspiration. I come from a small town, so having big dreams and actually going for it is something that you might not always see. Like people will say, oh yeah, you got those big dreams, they're just dreams. They're not dreams until you actually try. And I was fortunate enough to be able to try and have people to help me along the way. So that's kind of my inspiration for getting where I am.
I love it. You set a goal. You had people to help push you along. That's amazing. We keep telling the students here at school, you gotta set goals for yourself. You gotta keep pushing yourself and trying. We always say, what's the worst that could happen if you fail at something?
That's right.
You just try it again.
Try again. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. All right, we'll get right into the tricky question for the current Olympics. How are these Olympics different than previous Olympics you've been to due to COVID?
Sure, due to COVID, right. Our ability to move about freely wherever we would want is a little more restricted. So in prior games, we would be able to go into the cities and experience the culture of like Russia and Korea, and we'd be able to go out into the mountains and be able to just, kind of experience the whole area and experience the food and the culture and the heritage of where we are. And it's a little more tricky with COVID, and China is being really vigilant about trying to make sure that everyone's safe and healthy. So we're in what's called a closed loop. And the closed loop means that everyone gets tested for COVID every single day. And we report any symptoms every day on a health survey, much like you guys do for school, I'm sure. And, it's just a lot more steps. And we can't just go wherever we want because it's not necessarily safe for performance or just our own personal health. Because they don't, no one wants to get sick, and no one especially wants to get sick if they're going to try to compete, because that could be it for you. If you test positive for COVID and you're sick, then your Olympics is potentially over. And we have seen that here at the games, and it's been unfortunate for a number of athletes who have tested positive and had some symptoms that their Olympics were over. So that's a big change in the grand scheme of things, is all the testing and how much we're allowed to explore and go between the villages.
Mm-hmm. But again, those athletes are there, and you guys are there for one purpose, and that is to compete on a world stage. So to them, it must seem all that has to be worth it to make sure they're healthy and able to compete.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, like everyone, there's a mask mandate, right? And there are a lot of athletes who put themselves in isolation like months and weeks before they got here, because they knew this is their shot, and they wanted to make sure that COVID wasn't going to stop them from performing. So, doing all the right things is something that athletes do. Like world-class athletes do the things that average athletes don't want to do. They do all the tough, gritty things, and COVID happened to be a tough, gritty thing, and people are really trying to do the right thing so that they can compete.
I love that they're putting themselves above. They're taking themselves above and beyond to make sure they can get it done. They know there's got to be sacrifices made, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is a fun question. What has the food been like at the Olympics? Is it like cafeteria food?
I mean, it's cafeteria food. Like, we have buffet style food, and there's a cultural section, and so you got your salad bar, you've got your pastries and your donuts, and you've got like all the normal foods. And then you've got some Chinese cuisine, there's a lot of awesome dumplings here. Mm-hmm. So pork and shrimp dumplings, and like red bean paste dumplings, and there's lo mein and fried rice, and there's also a bunch of other things like steak and pork and chicken and tofu and vegetarian options. And there is also KFC, and there's Pizza Hut.
Okay.
And they're open 24 hours a day. And actually, we're really lucky here with Team USA. Team USA staff, the dietitians actually come with us, and they set up an athlete eating center for the US athletes in our little quadrant of the village. And they bring a lot of foods from home, whether it's packaged foods or snacks, or they make like, energy bites or bars or things like that for us. We do have some of the amenities that you guys would all be really accustomed to at home that we might not get here. And there's also I saw a video yesterday of some of the staff and a few athletes eating some strange foods. Like, they had a fermented chicken foot that they ate yesterday. Oh. They said it wasn't bad. I didn't have it, but I have seen video of people actually consuming the fermented packaged chicken foot. Oh. So that was a fun little thing that I did not try.
I'll see if we can get that in our school cafeteria in the next couple of weeks. Maybe some fermented chicken foot might be on the menu. We'll see how the kids like it.
Chicken toenail.
No. Another great question about the Olympic Village. What are the sleeping accommodations like?
Yeah, the sleeping accommodations are kind of like a dormitory, is kind of what I would equate them to. So the room that I'm in, I have a roommate, and it's two like twin beds, and then there's another bedroom just across, just in between the dividing wall here. Also two beds, two twin beds, and we have like a little common space, and then there's a bathroom. So it's kind of more dormitory style. And in the end, what will happen with the village is they'll probably turn it into a ski resort. So these will be probably remodeled a little bit, and they'll be more like kind of a hotel situation.
So no bunk beds.
No bunk beds. No.
Oh, That's okay. That's okay.
Much more room
You
for
talked a lot
creativity for one
about
person.
you talked a lot about being to three Olympics and seeing a lot of the world and seeing a lot of other world athletes. What is it like to help athletes compete against other athletes? And I know you mentioned before in the past that there is a season leading up to the Olympics where all the countries are meeting in other places around the world to compete. What is it like seeing those athletes frequently on the same stage?
Yeah,
Do
it's
you form
actually
bonds with them?
yeah, actually, since we travel around a lot, all year long, like 6 months out of the year, it's really nice. Like you get to know the different countries and the different teams and the athletes and the coaches and the other support staff, and you develop like lifelong friendships. It's just like anything else. When you see a group of people and you travel around, it becomes almost like a family, even though it might be a little dysfunctional at times because we're competing against each other at the highest level. There's a lot of things on the line like pride and prize money and just like prestige of winning the events. And but in the end of the day, like there's a lot of lifelong bonds that get made and
Mhm.
friendships that continue on. So it's actually really cool. And it's you get to the Olympics and it's more of the same. It's like you're cheering for people, not just your own team. Like, yeah, of course you're always going to cheer for and root for your own team to do their very best and win, but you're also like rooting for those teams that have also put in really hard work and effort, and you just hope that we do better than they do, and and,
Mhm.
and if they do better than us, that's fine. We still celebrate each other because it's sport, and we're trying to support each other. So that's
I
always a
got
really cool, unique thing
I
about
got some
sport.
good sportsmanship. You obviously want to win, but at the end of the day, you've become very good friends with a lot of these athletes from around the world. You even mentioned before we started recording the interview that you have stayed in touch with the other teams, coaches, and trainers. But it's cool that at the end of the day, there's still sportsmanship there, and you can root for each other, but you also mainly want to root for yourselves.
That's right.
Um, Gotta ask this: do you like the opening ceremonies or the closing ceremonies better?
I guess it depends on the games.
Mhm.
So I've only ever gone to the closing ceremonies once. I can tell you that going to the opening ceremony is like super hyped. Like,
Mhm.
if anyone were to go and find my Facebook video from Sochi in 2014, like we're walking out this corridor with all of the U.S. athletes and everyone's chanting USA, like just like savage energy in there, and like people are just going bananas, and it like rattles you on the inside. You're so
Mhm.
hyped up for opening ceremonies because the games are getting started and people are psyched to be there, and
Mhm.
and so that's really awesome. And closing ceremonies is really cool because you get to see the passing of the torch to the next Olympic site, and there's a story behind it and all of that planning and stuff, and you still get to hang with the team, albeit less of the team because some of the
Mhm.
athletes might have gone home already, or they have the rest of their season might still be going because the Olympics is just a stop along the way in their season. So closing ceremonies is a little more chill and relaxed, and it's like celebratory to all the champions. But it's not that opening ceremonies hype that everyone gets when you're just like in
Mhm.
there trying to chant louder than every country that's out there. So probably opening ceremonies is
Mhm.
probably the coolest.
What emotion would you say is like pumping in you during the opening ceremonies?
Oh man, I don't know. Probably can't limit it to one. It's just like pride, to be an American citizen who's like out there like competing for USA and supporting Team USA, and
Mhm.
there's joy for having made it there. The success that and the hard work and determination it's taken to get there, it's finally paid off. So you're like so happy, and then just camaraderie. That like feeling of like you know celebration with everyone else, like friendship and camaraderie. Like I know that's not really an emotion, but just like that feeling of togetherness, I guess, is yeah, those are some pretty big emotions to have all in one small little area,
Mhm.
for an hour or so.
I love it. One question I missed about the current Olympics. I know you mentioned it's kind of hard to go out during this Olympics, but what do athletes and coaches and trainers do during their downtime? Because obviously the competition is going on for the 2.5 weeks the Olympics is going, but what do athletes do during their downtime?
So first and most important, athletes are taking care of their health and their wellness because they're actually competing still. So they take a lot of time to make sure they're sleeping right, getting their sleep schedule lined up for competition and training. Because oftentimes you're traveling to another country where the time zone might change. So you like have to take care to make sure that you're sleeping right. They still are working out. So they spend part of their day going to the gym and still training, whether it's weightlifting or running or plyometrics or just some recovery stretching and foam rolling. And, they go to sports med once or twice a week during the time that they're there to take care of any injuries or get massaged to make sure that they're able to perform at their highest. And then when they have some downtime, everyone is really excited to go out and cheer for their U.S. Olympic teammates. So whether or not you can make it to another venue to watch like downhill skiing or snowboarding or speed skating or hockey, athletes are out there actively trying to support each other and make, form new friendships and bonds and like cheer everyone on the team. And they also go down and hang out in the Athlete Resource Center, which is like the USOPC, the Olympic Committee, has a room where they have they have a couple TVs and some snacks and some couches and stuff where people can go and hang out together as Team USA and watch TV and cheer on if they don't want to go out to the venue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what our days really look like. Is just it's more of the same of taking care and doing all those things that people don't want to do, like stretching, sleeping right, working out, getting massage, getting like treatment and therapy on their injuries, like because we could be doing a lot of other things, but they're like getting up early and still doing those things because the event's not over yet.
Well, if I remember anything from college is I didn't want to run into you if I didn't go get therapy after a sporting event. So I would assume all of Team USA is definitely doing that.
Yeah, they're definitely getting in there.
Yeah. All right. We're on to what is your job like? The first question, this one's funny to me. I know our PE teachers want to know, how can a loser get disqualified? They were curious, like if their uniform is not to standards, the needles on the gloves are too long or something. Can a loser get disqualified?
Yeah, certainly any athlete, loser included, can get disqualified because there's technical rules, right? So you guys you pointed out just now, like, do the spikes on their fingers have to be a certain length? They do. They get checked. Does the person have to be a certain body weight? Yeah. So pre-event, you have to weigh in, and then you weigh in also with your sled, and then that combined weight, you have to weigh that exact weight or less when you finish the race. And the temperature of the runners or the steels on the bottom of the sled have to be within the control temperature at the track. There's also things like the shape and size of the sled and the coofins have to be within the certain standards. So you could get disqualified there. And then, yeah, like in the Olympics right now, there's a thing called it's a Rule 50. And Rule 50 kind of is in regard to any sort of logo. Like, so Mr. Spadoni is wearing his USA Lax shirt with the Nike sign. And in the Olympics, that's okay because the brand, we get one brand sign, and then it has to be a certain size. And so on our suits during the games, like the actual race suits that they wear, the logos for the sponsor can only be a certain size and shape. If they fall outside of that size or shape, they're considered illegal. And if you were to race with it, it's considered promoting a brand, and that promotes consumerism, which could enhance that company's standards. So that's a disqualification for unlawful, consumerism, I guess is what you would call it. So
It
like
sounds like
if
there's a
you
lot of
saw
science behind it too, like the temperature of the sled and the weight of the athlete before and after the run. A lot of science and a lot of like, I feel like, does that fall on you, like the monitoring of the weight and stuff like that?
not really. All the technical specs, the athletes really are really good about that, and they've been doing it for so long that it's generally really easy for them to make sure that they do those things and they do them properly, and they weigh their sleds they weigh themselves almost on a daily basis to make sure that they're on weight. And then they're constantly changing their spikes, and you can always go and ask the technical director during the race week to check your items. So that's something where they're pretty vigilant about that because they don't want to get disqualified on a technicality.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So what does your day-to-day job look like when the Olympics are going on?
Actually, my day-to-day job at the Olympics is easier than my day-to-day job when I'm on the normal tour. And that's because there's a lot more support when we get here to the Olympics. Like, so normally it's just me as the main medical provider, and I kind of like help manage mental health, and I kind of help manage diet stuff and weightlifting when I'm on the road. And I also do video, and I also help drive the vehicles and transport the athletes. So my day-to-day operations here at the Olympics is, we wake up, we get breakfast, we do any treatments if there's time in the morning before the session for training, go out to the track, make sure people have their equipment, like med balls and bands to warm up, and foam rollers and hypervolts and things like that, like massage guns. We make sure they warm up properly, and then if anyone needs any treatment before they go, like, maybe their neck is feeling a little off or their shoulder's not quite feeling right, we take care of those things at the track. The athletes then slide for 3-4 runs, so that takes about an hour and a half with all the other teams and competitors in our group. Then we go back, probably do some more treatment if anyone has any injuries or if they need like massage or anything like that, or chiropractic. And then the team usually does video and they do their sled work, and then it's like dinner time or bed usually. So the day's pretty jam packed. There's not a ton of time to just have down and just kind of hanging out, because athletes are always trying to figure out when they need treatment or when they're going to eat or when they're going to do their sled work or when they're going to do video. So I have to shape my schedule around all the other schedules to make sure that I'm accommodating. So it might be like, and Mr. Spadoni can tell you that we would have set training room hours where he could come in and get treatment. And if he tried to come in later, then I'd be like, you didn't come in during the scheduled time, so I can't actually treat you because I got other stuff going on. So it's very similar here, except I'm a bit more accommodating because my job is solely to take care of one team rather than like 3 or 4 teams and teach class like when I was working at the university with Mr. Spadoni. So that's kind of my day-to-day schedule. It's a little hectic. We're kind of going from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. at this point because races are super late at night.
That sounds like a very long day, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned 2 big things that actually lead to other questions. When you say you also take care of athletes' mental health, what has to be going through an athlete's mind to successfully go 70 to 90 miles an hour down an ice slide? What do you say to them? How do you help them with that?
A lot of it is just reminding them how good they actually are, and helping them believe in themselves and be confident, right? And not overthink. And for all of you, the younger athletes out there, and even, for those of you that are coaching, something that we often do in all my years of experience and also doing a little coaching myself is oftentimes we tell people to try 110%, and they have to be perfect. And the funny thing is that when you're striving for perfection, oftentimes or every time, you're going to do something that's not perfect. But we put this image in our minds as athletes and coaches that, that wasn't perfect. I got to do better. I got to do better. I got to do better. Where it becomes this mental block where we're trying so hard, 110%, that we're actually more prone to messing up. So oftentimes just getting athletes to be like, hey, take a deep breath, get yourself relaxed and focused, try 95%. Because when we try too hard, we often try so hard that we mess up because we've never actually given 110%. We don't know what that feels like. And then we do it and it's like, oh man, that threw me off because I tried so hard, and then the belief starts when you can be consistent. And when people play and train consistently, they'll raise their level in actual competition because that consistency comes through. So that's really the mental part is getting people to focus on not trying too hard and just believing that their skill is good enough and that they actually belong there. Because so many of us, we're like, oh, we're not good enough. We're never good enough to beat those people, or we have that negative thought in our mind. And we actually need to change that and be like, I am who I am. I'm going to try my best. And that's all I can ask of myself. And if I keep working harder and harder and harder, I can get to the point where I am as good as that person or better. That's if you believe in yourself. So we talk a lot about that. And then, dealing with defeat or a poor performance. Like we do that a lot. We, console people and tell them, hey, you let them grieve for a little bit. Like, everyone gets to be sad. Everyone gets to be sad. And we know that. You get to be disappointed. And then it's just telling them, hey, you know what, that moment's over. It's gone. It's in the past. You can't change it. So now you're just going to move on to the next one, because the next one is going to be better or change from what just happened. So yeah, it's mental stuff.
You just said what I've been trying to say all year, and that is perfect. I love that. It is okay to mess up. Yeah. You are who you are. You got to move past the mess ups and try again on the next one. That is amazing. That's huge. So I'm glad that you were able to say that too and put it into better words.
It's really important too that athletes often feel like they've disappointed people. And oftentimes as coaches and family and supporters, we're like, no, we're proud of you no matter what. If you tried your best, we're going to be proud of you. But the athletes don't, they think that they've disappointed everyone. And we have to let them know that, hey, that didn't go well, and that's okay. And we're still behind you 100%. We're going to pick you up and we're going to move you on to the next step and see where the chips fall. So,
I love it.
Not beating ourselves up that we let people down. That's important.
So off the other previous question, you say you do a lot of treatments for athletes too. Mm-hmm. What are some common injuries you see during the sport of luge?
Yeah, so luge, for those of you who have seen any of the clips, you sit down and then you paddle on the ground with your arms, and then you lay down and then you go ripping down this icy canal, this little tube. And so most of the injuries involve your shoulder and your neck and your back. It's a lot of force. There's like a lot of G forces that like hit you. Like, if you're on a roller coaster, you're driving really fast in the car and you hit a corner and it feels like it pushes you back in the car or in the seat in the roller coaster. Imagine that, but hitting you in the neck and the head. And so folks get a lot of neck injuries, a lot of shoulder injuries from going into this like really deep compression and then pulling off the handles. And then obviously there's, just like any other sport where there's collision, if the athletes crash, you're looking at twisted ankles, bruises, broken bones. Concussions are a big one. I've had, this year has been really challenging. We've had people break, I think 3 people have broken some bone in their foot. We've had a couple broken fingers. We've had multiple concussions, and we've had, rotator cuff injuries, so shoulder injuries. And yeah, there's a lot. So they're common injuries that you guys would see, just in a different way.
And you are constantly there to make sure they get healthy as quick as possible and get back out on the track.
That's right. Yeah, that's my job, is to make sure that they're healthy.
Every time. What workout is the most tiring for the athletes and you guys? I can only imagine it's probably bringing the sled back up to the top.
Well, bringing the sled back up to the top is pretty easy. Like, they have a truck that drives us up to the top. While we're at the track, the toughest part of the day really for the athletes is just taking their runs, because it's a lot of G forces and it's a lot of like holding your body in a very specific position. So it's like if you were going to lay on a medicine ball, like one of those big physio balls, and try to just hold that position without moving while you're going like 75 miles an hour 3 times in one day, within the course of an hour, it's a pretty big workout, because you're also almost like holding your breath.
I have to put a disclaimer out there for all the students with selective seating right now. You are not going to try that during class. You're supposed to be sitting on them. You follow the rules about sitting on them. So no trying luge on the medicine balls during class. All right.
You should definitely try it just to see what Mr. Spadoni will do.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Ooh, the PE teachers also want to know, what is the biggest muscle group used during luge?
The biggest muscle group used during luge is probably your midsection. So what most people would probably call their core of their body. So anything from basically your chest to your knees on the front and back side of your body, we would consider your midsection or your core. And because they're laying in the sled, just like I said, like laying on the physio ball, like you're going to do in Mr. Spadoni's class, you're trying to hold your body really tense and tense but relaxed, and you use that tension to help you steer the sled. So yeah, your midsection. So having a really strong midsection is really important, just like for all sports.
Mhm. Getting down to the last couple of questions. Is there an athlete you have worked with on Team USA or in general that has been your favorite or has inspired you a ton?
I mean, there's a
That is
lot.
actually a student question, not a personal question. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's tough. That's like asking someone, "Hey, what's your favorite movie?"
Mhm.
People could be like, "Well, I don't know. Like I could give you like my top 5." And it's really everyone has everyone inspires you at this level, and because they've all got their own story and they've got their own trials and tribulations and what's been really driving them to get where they are. But for this season, I can tell you this one athlete, Emily Sweeney, she crashed in the Pyeongchang games and actually broke 2 bones. She broke one in her neck and she broke one in her back. And she's also a part of the military. So the military didn't allow her to travel to several of the events this year and the year before. So was kind of at a disadvantage as far as where she could go and get training. And her partner, her boyfriend, who's Italian, she didn't get to see him for an entire year because she wasn't allowed to travel outside of the United States. So she has faced a ton of adversity, and so that's really inspiring. And another athlete who's been really inspiring this year is Jason Turdeman. If you guys go on the Team USA page and look for Jason Turdeman, his story's on there, and it's basically about he didn't make the Olympics. Everyone thought he was going to make it, and him and his partner Chris Masder didn't make it, and he gave up his sled. He gave his sled, which is faster than the other boys' sled, to the current team who's here racing for Team USA, and that's like a $20,000 sled that he gave them so that they could try to compete at their very best. And so that's an inspirational story, because that's like doing something good in the face of adversity when you didn't get your dream, but you can help someone else achieve their dream. So that's really inspiring for this year.
That's
Those 2 people are really great. They're trying really hard, and there are so many other people who
mhm.
have similar stories. So it's hard to pick, but those are the 2 that stick out the most to me this
Those are
year.
two incredible stories, like sacrifice and commitment to both of them.
Yep.
That's amazing. Um, so you have been a part of, I believe, 2 medals for Team USA Luge, correct?
Yep.
Bronze and a silver in 2 different Olympics. What did that feel like to be the person to support that? Because I don't know what the boys and girls know, but only the athletes at the Olympics get a medal. Coaches, trainers, medics, anybody associated with the team does not get a medal, but the athlete does. So what does that feel like for you to be the one to support them and help them get those medals?
I mean, it's a really cool, uplifting, awesome experience to share that moment with them, and to know that you helped them get there, even if it's the smallest part, right? Like it's awesome. And I'm sure if Mr. Spadoni's probably seen on my Facebook or my Instagram from those years when we won those medals, that the athletes end up getting pictures with you, and you hold the medal with them because you're a part of the team, and it's really awesome. And then there's like pictures of me out there with the actual medal just by myself, and you're like, yeah, this is like I helped with this, and it's really exciting and it's awesome. And it's such a great thing, and to celebrate someone in sport and be a part of their success, especially on this stage where something that only happens every 4 years, and someone's been working so hard, maybe their entire life, to get to this point, and then they win, and then you get to share that experience. So it's incredible. It's a really incredible feeling. And,
It's like a
I don't
lifetime
need a
memory. It's
medal.
never going to go away.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm. So we got, I think, 2 final questions. One is funny, and one's a pretty serious question that I really appreciate is getting asked. We'll go with the funny one first. How hard is it for a non-Olympic athlete to compete in the luge? Do I have a shot? Do any of the students at Laurelton Party have a shot right now?
You, Mr. Spadoni, 0 shot.
In my current physical shape or like anytime?
Well, I mean, maybe 10 years ago you would maybe got a shot. Yeah, you're getting a little older now. It's okay.
Yeah.
For all of the youngsters at the school there, in the United States, luge athletes don't start getting trained until they're probably 11 or 12. So they're right around
a couple years away for a lot of our students.
Yeah. And so like there's a shot. Like you go to a development camp and you try it, and if you like it, you go to another camp, and if you're good, the coaches select you to keep going, and then at some point you get funding if you're good enough, and then you keep going on. So there's definitely a chance for all of the kids in your school to go and try it and to become an Olympian in luge.
It's actually pretty interesting. They are currently doing sledding in PE right now. So I'm curious how many kids in the next couple of days are going to go down the hill acting like a luge athlete.
Just to see if they got it. They should go and make their own little track at their house, go find a hill and just build like some curves, and they can take the sled down and have a grand time.
There they go. So how far would I make it down the hill if I were to hop on a luge sled right now?
I mean, they would put you in somewhere really low where you weren't going to kill yourself. So, you make it like a few hundred meters before you.
Where I'm probably going like 10 miles an hour.
No. I bet you would still go 30 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah, I'm out. Can't do that. Nope, I'm out. Okay, the final question. You've been around a ton of athletes. You've been around a ton of Olympic athletes. What is one common trait, personality trait you see in all Olympic athletes?
Probably determination. And I kind of explained it earlier. It's the people that want to win and are winning. They do the things and they sacrifice more than anyone else. So if that means getting up every day at 3 a.m. to go to the gym, and you have a job, then you get up at 3 a.m. and you go and you get your workout in and you go to work. And then they do the things that no one else wants to do. Like no one wants to stretch. No one wants to do yoga. No one wants to take dance lessons. No one wants to do the things that seem like they're just grinding and gritty, and no one wants to do extra laps or stay later and like suffer and struggle like in the pool. But the athletes that are the greatest, if you go and look and historically see what they've done, they do all the things that us normal humans feel uncomfortable doing, and they just do it longer. So they're determined to do those things and to be dedicated to the process, and they just do more than other people.
I love that. They live outside of their comfort level.
Yeah. It'd be like Mr. Spadoni when he was in college, like being out there picking up extra GBs on the lacrosse field, figuring out how to like get people off of him so he can get the ground ball, like more and more repetitions, just, taking care of your stick, coming in and getting treatment with me, getting in the ice bath and like doing all those little things that people don't want to do.
I don't miss the ice bath, I can tell you that.
I don't think anyone really does.
No, but it does sound like there's a huge amount of commitment, determination, and I love the word grit for these athletes to make sure they're at the highest level.
That's right.
That is awesome. Well, I think that concludes all of our questions. I can't thank you enough for taking time. It's morning where you are, midday.
Yeah, it's like noonish.
It's noon where you are. It's 11:30 at night where I am. But I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this with us. I know all the students and teachers and staff at Laurelton Party can't thank you enough. And I think I'll say this for all of us, go Team USA.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Always. Make sure you guys lay on your physio balls in Mr. Spadoni's class, okay?
Please don't do it.